it was a strange place. It was on the Lakota Reservation in South Dakota, and it was an amazing experience. I tell you, Whitley is a true mystic. We were in a car driving to we were going to guest at a Native American ceremony they were performing, and Whitley, while we were driving, was having a vision and looking out the window and seeing things. And he describes it in his latest book, A New World. And it's just amazing. He's an amazing man.
Oh, he is. And he's also kind and gentle man, too. That's one thing I found out, at one point with him. So, I mean, he's not scared to talk about stuff. If he doesn't want to talk about it, he'll tell you, I don't want to go there. But, I mean, he's so far has been totally open every time he's been on.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna regress you. I'm gonna put you under, Terry. I'm ready. I'm taking you back because, we're on more radio stations since the last time you've been on. And more people, haven't, I want them to hear your story. You and your buddy were medics at the hospital on an Air Force base. You decide you want to go camping. Now, if I remember right, you've never been camping, or he's never been camping before. You go out and buy...
Neither one of us.
Yeah, you go out and buy the camping gear, the sleeping bags, the tent, the food, all that stuff, the flashlights, and you head off to what you think is a state campground. But instead of making the one turn, you turn and go the opposite way, and you find this beautiful area. You didn't know it was on government property. You set up your tent. You're now, having a fire going, and probably just talking with your buddy. And tell us from there what happened.
Sure. I don't need to be regressed in that it's so fresh in my memory. I had the presence of mind when I got home because I thought it would be important one day to write down the details and preserve them in a notebook. And that's what I used as a guide to help me write the book. But it was an event you'd never forget. I guarantee. It's not it's like if you ever saw a train wreck. It's not the kind of thing that's going to fade from your mind. And it was such an event that I tend to view my life as pre-1977 and post-1977. My friend Toby and I, we went to Devil's Den as a couple of kids, and we left as different people. It was an enormous event. And it started like this. And you're absolutely right. Neither one of us had ever been camping. But like my buddy said, hey, this ain't rocket science. We buy some stuff, we go out, we build a fire, we, burn some hot dogs and put up a cheap tent and kick back and watch the night sky. And, I was there to take photographs of wildlife. So we didn't want to stay in a campground. That's you got people on either side of you. You got kids running around and other undesirables. We wanted to be like Lewis and Clark. We wanted to be wilderness camping. And we found a spot. And we were talking. We had eaten dinner, and we were sitting around the campfire just talking, just about nothing important, nothing in particular. We'd been friends a long time, so, we're comfortable with each other's company. We're just chatting. And there's a lull in our conversation. And this, Gary, this sounds so cliche, I know. But I swear to God that it's absolutely true. And that is that the forest went absolutely quiet. I mean, it went dark. It went silent. The crickets, the tree frogs, all the insects that are out there, they were so loud, just like a few minutes earlier, that we were having trouble hearing each other from a distance of about 10 feet. And now, when we're not talking, the only thing I can hear is a little bit of crackling from the campfire. And I noticed that even that, the flames are moving straight up. And we enjoyed a nice little breeze that felt pretty nice just a few minutes earlier. And it wasn't only quiet, it was still. And that spooked me. And I'll be honest with you, had I been there on my own, I'd have left. I'd have got in my car and got out of there. And I asked my buddy, I said, hey, Toby, is this normal for things to be this quiet? And he kind of blew it off and said, oh, yeah, we've been laughing and cutting up. This is cool. We're good. Trust me, the sounds of the forest will be back in no time. Crickets, tree frogs, yeah, they'll come back. So, I didn't make a big deal out of it, but it made me nervous. And while we're sitting there talking, he suddenly turns his head to the left, and he's looking at something on the horizon. And he asked me, he said, hey, Terry, were those lights there before? And I'm straining my back to look in back of him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And, for a minute, I think he's pulling my leg. And then I look, and sitting on the horizon, on the other side of him, there are these 3 stars. And each one is about as bright as the North Star. So they're pretty bright. And this was an absolute cloudless, beautiful night. And we're on a piece of high ground. So there's no light pollution. We just got a beautiful view of the night sky. But we see this little perfect triangle of 3 stars, and they're too high off the horizon to have been lights from a train or a parking lot or something like that. They're also static, so we don't know of any aircraft that has that kind of light configuration. Plus, it doesn't appear to be moving, and we watch it for a few minutes because if you're watching an aircraft come directly at you, it could appear stationary. But eventually it's going to get bigger. It's going to change course or whatever. This thing looks static, and about 15 minutes pass, and we're talking about what is that? And then the thing moves. And what it first did is it rotated like it was on an axis and did about a 3/4 turn, stopped, and then started to climb up into the sky. And with the apex, the point of the triangle, up.
Now, Terry?
And yes.
Were you guys getting nervous at that point?
I'm so glad you asked that question because, just a few minutes before he spotted this thing, I was nervous. I was. Like I said, if I'd been there by myself, I'd have left. But I didn't. I didn't want to look like, like I was afraid. I didn't want to do that. So, no. The crazy thing is that I felt this wave of calm wash over me, and it was weird. It was like a wave of mild sedation. And all of that uneasiness left me. But I also had kind of a change in mindset. And I don't know how to explain this properly, other than I was mildly disinterested. I mean, I wasn't apathetic. I wouldn't go that far. But I would say that I wasn't appropriately interested. And I felt more like an observer in this matter than a participant,
Were you in a daze?
I felt like I was... Go ahead.
Were you in a daze?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we both were. There's hardly a word spoken between us. And, our reaction is just absolutely inappropriate. We should have been, running for the car or at least talking about it between ourselves. And, nothing. No dialogue between us. We're just sitting there, and we're watching this thing. And it does climb straight up in the sky, like I said, with the apex of the triangle pointed up. And the higher it climbs, the faster it climbs, and the bigger it gets. And the 3 points of light, they spread, but they always stayed equidistant to one another. And the inside of the triangle was jet black, where the area around the triangle was a light blue because of the starlight. So we could see that this was one solid object. This wasn't 3 independent objects working in unison. This was one solid object. So we're watching it, and it does this tumbling thing. And the point would go down, and then the side would come up. You know, it always stayed pointed in our direction, but it did this tumbling thing. And I remember thinking, you know, this thing's tumbling, but it's moving with purpose. You know, it's not just out of control. It's moving with purpose. And that alone should have been enough to make us nervous. But again, we weren't. And the closer the thing got, the more sedated I felt. Now, I'm 22 years old, and you know, this guy's my coworker, and we worked as EMTs in an emergency room, and we worked the night shift. We'd worked the night shift for years, so we're used to being up at night. I mean, you know, at 22, you weren't often sleepy. I mean, you know, this was I don't know where this came from, but while we're watching this thing, I started to feel sleepy. And there's hardly a word spoken between us. I think the only thing that I remember Toby saying was, "Man, it's really moving now," or words to that effect. And it became obvious that this thing was headed in our direction. And it seemed to reach a ceiling and then descend. And while it was kind of slow to climb, it descended pretty rapidly. And as it descended, it got big.
Okay, and now I mean, we need you to hold that. We need to take a 2-minute break here on Night Dreams Talk Radio. We're talking with, Terry Lovelace, a former assistant attorney general, a lawyer, and abductee, implantee, and he has a lot to say. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.
In life's journey, some ask themselves why the big time is passing by. They want it all and they want it now. No need to wonder how or why. They decide to make a connection with the bearer of light from the other side. It's a self-centered new world reflection. It's a one-way ticket for one hell of a ride. They're making a deal. Whether down at the crossroads or Hollywood and Vine, they're making a deal. Gonna have it all for a moment in time. You may be a kingpin drug dealer who wants the competition out of the way. You may be an elite politician who wants total control and a power play. You may be an aspiring entertainer who wants to have their name in lights. You may be a 4-star general who wants the upper hand in a global fight. They're all making a deal. With the chief light bearer from the other side, they're making a deal. It's an alternative thing for one hell of a ride. So you call on the bearer of light. He offers you a plush cushion to relieve you from your discerned plight. Don't bother to calculate the interest as a benefactor of his door. You get what you want for a moment moment in time as it confiscates your soul.